Today we have a 2008 528i. Today we'll be replacing the oil filter housing gasket as well as the oil cooler gasket. All right, so as y'all can see here, the oil filter housing, the oil cooler is leaking oil all over the alternator. So we're gonna go ahead and replace both these gaskets. First thing we're gonna do to get the oil cooler is get the oil cooler removed here. So we're gonna go ahead and remove this coolant hose here. It goes to the cooler. This one's held in by a belt clamp. I already took it off, so I'm just gonna go ahead and slide it off. As you can see, it's green coolant. Normally BMW uses a blue like coolant. However, this car I guess has been flushed out before and changed. So now that we've removed that, we're gonna use a E12 and remove a total of 3 E12 bolts. 2, as you can see right here, and the third one will be right under where my middle finger is. Get a better view once I remove it, but I'll go ahead and remove these 3, get this oil cooler out the way, and give y'all a view. Just to give y'all another view of where that bolt will be located, you see my ratchets right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that bolt as well as the other 2 and get this out. So now with my oil cooler removed, you can see the placement of 3 E12 bolts, the bottom one, 2 sides, as well as it exposes the oil filter housing further. So now before we actually start removing the oil filter housing, we're gonna have to do a few things. We're gonna have to remove the radiator hose right here, the upper radiator hose, with a pick or a little flathead. You're gonna pull this little metal clip back like so and pull this outward. Also, we're gonna go ahead and unplug the sensor here. There is a metal tab you push under it. You can see it's like little metal kind of sticks up when I do it, and pull back. So there we go. And then we'll go ahead and also remove the oil filter itself. Once we do that, we can start removing the 3 bolts that hold the oil filter housing in place. We're going to switch up our socket to an E10 now. So there will be one E10 right here. You can see the bottom of the bolt right there. Obviously one right here, and then a hidden one under the intake manifold right there. So those are 3 bolts we're going to have to remove next. And we'll be able to get the oil filter housing out and get all this crud cleaned up as well. Just want to give y'all a quick little FYI on these 2 E10 bolts here and here. So this one right here, as you can see, when you back it out, it gets stuck right here. So what you're gonna have to do is remove the other 2 and kind of push it out, and then you can remove it. This one over here, so you can take the intake manifold off, but I wouldn't recommend it just for 1 bolt. You can go through here, kind of get in there. But what I did was literally reach my E10 wrench in there, broke the bolt. If you don't have one, you can use an 8mm, similar enough, but I don't like to use 8mm to break E's, or 8mm to break an E10. So what I'm gonna do is actually use the E10, get it in here, break the bolt, and then with my, since I don't have a ratcheting E10, I'm gonna use my 8mm ratchet right here, ratcheting wrench, and just ratchet it out. So after I do that, this one's already loose. I'm gonna go ahead and move those 2 bolts, push it outward to get this bolt out. Once I do that, we can get the whole thing out and cleaned up. So after loosening that bolt down there and removing this top one here, I can push up and go ahead and just back out this entire bolt. And sorry I'm showing this, normally I skip these whole points, but just give me all little tips on everything. Oh, wait, I am tightening it. So we can back that out all the way, and hopefully when I back this out, we might be able to rotate this oil filter housing to get to that bolt a little further. If it works out well, that's great. If not, just got to keep trying to back it out through intake manifold or up here like I was doing. So let's get this out. So after removing that bolt, doesn't give you enough clearance to get a socket in there. However, I can shift it a little downward more to move my wrench a little further. So go ahead and remove it. So I've cleaned up the area a bit, just blowing it out with a blowgun, spraying some brake cleaner down just to get that hard stuff off. I also went ahead and covered this up just to prevent anything from falling in, just prevent something from happening. But because we've had oil consistently dripping on the drive belt as well as some coolant now from our job, we're gonna go ahead and just replace the drive belt here. So with the T60 on the tensioner right here and our ratchet in the on position, we're going to go ahead and push it forward and remove the belt. And once we do that, we're just going to go ahead and just pop it off, replace it. Pretty simple process. just want to give you a little view how it's going to look. This is the old belt, obviously, around the crank pulley, on the tensioner, over there to the AC compressor. I believe that's what's over there. Around to the alternator, around this idle pulley, going around this direction here, and then onto the power steering pump below. So let's go ahead and get that replaced. And then once I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up with my oil filter housing here. So I cleaned it up a bit, just pretty much put it in Varsol, scrubbed it up a bit as much as I can. We're gonna go ahead and put our new gaskets in. They only go one way, so you can't really go wrong with it. But once we do all that, I'm gonna go ahead and pop it back in place. A little FYI, so when we put our oil filter housing in, we have to torque it down to 16.5 foot-pounds, or around 22 Newton meters. So obviously it's going to be kind of difficult for me to use my torque wrench here and here. So I did make a mark on where the original bolts were at. This one, however, obviously, like, if you were to make a mark, it would be on the oil filter housing, and I cleaned it off, obviously. So I just kind of made a mark on the intake manifold, so I can just go directly down with my marker, make another mark again, torque it to that spec. I'm going to torque this one down, and pretty much we'll be done with that part of it. So I'm going to get this drive belt replaced, and then we'll get our gaskets in. So I've gone ahead and replaced the belt now. I'm going to go ahead and throw my oil filter housing in. Like I said before, the gaskets really only go one way, so got those in. I'm going to go ahead and place this in. However, I'm going to thread the bolt, 2 bolts. The bolt that goes back here, I'm going to thread that as much as I can, as well as this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and thread those in, and we start tightening it down. So I have the oil filter housing in place now. You can see my marks from the beginning here. One there, sorry, it's a little glare. One there, as well as the one in there. Just kind of followed my mark on my intake manifold, just went straight down to get on that mark on that bolt down there. Went ahead and tightened this bolt by itself, 16.5 foot-pounds, or 22 Newton meters, around there. I mean, if you take all this off and are able to torque those down, go ahead and do that. I highly recommend that, but just to make it simple, just made a mark, put it back in place to factory torque. Put my radiator hose back on. So now I'm gonna go ahead and put the cooler back on, and this gets torqued down to 12 Newton meters, or about 12 foot-pounds, or about 16 Newton meters. So I'm gonna get this on, put the other hose back on it as well, and pretty much we'll be almost done. So we have everything reinstalled now. Oil cooler torqued down to 12 foot-pounds, or 16 Newton meters. Oil filter is in. It goes to 25.5 Newton meters, or about 18.5 foot-pounds. However, you will need to change the oil after this. Also, what we're gonna have to do is top off the coolant. And remember, BMW uses blue, however this car is green. And also, we're gonna have to bleed out the cooling system, which you can also see in my other video. So thanks for watching this one, y'all. More videos to come, and please like and subscribe.